founder of Silk and Sonder, Meha Agarwal. Did you know that this is going to be like a multi-million-dollar company?
No.
One day? This is a tool, a vitamin, or a
Yeah.
vaccine.
Or a painkiller.
What this product is?
Intelligent self-care system that helps people reduce anxiety, stress, and burnout. It has a new theme every month, right? It's like Christmas in a box.
How do you give the confidence to your users?
One thing I don't love about every generative AI product that I've used out there is how user-driven it is. We assume that the user knows what they want. Most of the time they don't. Mental well-being is kind of that center that impacts every other area of your life. If you yourself are not feeling good, how are you going to show up as a parent, as a spouse, as a colleague, as a friend?
Your childhood.
That feeling of my parents sacrificed everything to give me a better life. And then I go to kindergarten and my dad's like, what did you learn today? And I said, shapes and colors. And he's like, this is the American education.
How did you end up as a software engineer?
I realized computer science is the only engineering major where I could go into beauty, I could go into fashion, I could go into any industry I wanted.
I don't know where I need to go, but
Yeah.
I know where I don't need to be stuck.
Totally. All these people are just finding debugging to be meditative. And I'm sitting there being like, this is ridiculous. Why wasn't it built the right way in the first place?
So your teachers are not surprised that you're a CEO of a company right now?
I think my parents are more surprised than my teachers. I would have such low ambition. And I remember turning to my husband and saying, oh my God, will I ever get my ambition back? The part that was difficult was I had an emergency C-section, had an instinct that I should go to the hospital, but I go and they said, had you waited a minute later, she may not have made it.
Welcome everyone to yet another episode of Jack of All. For a while I have thought that I should invite a mental health professional probably, because most of the community that is watching or listening, they are busy doing different things in a very unorganized fashion, in a very uncertain world, with desires and challenges and not enough skills to be able to do that. And this at a long stretch can take a toll on any individual, and it is proven by research that it does take a toll on the individual. And what better than bringing someone in the space who is also a jack of all. So I'm super excited about today's episode. Today's guest is a woman, a CEO, a mother, a bathroom singer, have been actress, a marketer, an editor, someone who's their own secretary, a fundraiser, someone who goes and meets the VCs. But more than that, they are a global mental health advocate, leading a company which is multi-million dollars, trying to disrupt an industry which is $4.1 trillion of global mental health and wellness. With that, all my pleasure, I want to welcome my dear friend, Meha Agarwal.
Thank you for having me, Adi. I'm super excited for
Thank you
today's
so much.
conversation.
And Meha Agarwal is the founder of Silk and Sonder. Meha, Silk and Sonder, for any founder, the most important thing is the name of their product. Because it's not just a nomenclature that people know their creation by, but also about the history of why that product exists and what kind of impact it wants to make. Silk, I understand, is the flow and the softness of it. And Sonder is basically the empathy of understanding that someone else may be going through the same complex issues that I am going in my life and having some kind of it. That's my understanding of Sonder. And I want to ask you, like, why Silk and Sonder? Welcome to the show.
First of all, thank you for the lovely introduction, and you're spot on with the name and the intention behind the name. So Sonder is actually a made-up word in the Dictionary of Obscure Sorrows. I stumbled upon it when I was trying to think of the name for the company, and I always had this vision that, you know, we all go through ups and downs of life. Some of it we expect, some of it just happens to us. And when I stumbled upon this word, it was kind of like a Hindi word, right? That's just so deep in meaning that no translation does it justice. And so Sonder, like you said, is this word that signifies that every passerby is living this life that's littered with their own anxieties, their own dreams, their own heartaches and complexities, and you think you're alone, but really everyone's feeling
Yeah.
that same heaviness of life. And so Silk is, just as you observed, our attempt to add smoothness to that otherwise very complex and isolating feeling. And then also it's supposed to be a metaphor for the community as the thread, right? You think of the silk roads, you think of silk being interwoven and, being like a thread. And that's always been my intention, to have community integrated into a very isolating experience otherwise when it comes to self-discovery, self-reflection, self-awareness, and self-actualization.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah.
How do you feel after having founded this company, coming a long way with it?
Yeah.
So far, you are standing on a multi-million-dollar rating.
Yeah.
You are one of the. I want to congratulate on a few things first.
Sure, thank you.
Before we start into getting
Yeah.
into your company, I want to congratulate you on successfully intending to and building a community around mental health and mental wellness.
Yeah.
Right. And I want to congratulate you for being a mother while doing that.
Yeah.
And we'll get into a little bit about, how that was challenging and how you navigated different things. And thirdly, I want to congratulate you for truly impacting my own personal life. My wife is a huge fangirl of
Yes.
yours. This is how I even know about Silk Sonder. So maybe I can go back into, the time and share. My wife is a avid, or I would say a regular user of Silk Sonder, subscriber of Silk
Yes.
Sonder. This started during COVID when she was looking for different avenues of figuring herself out.
Mm-hmm.
And through that, I learned about this. Initially, I thought this book was just a scrapbook where she was just, jotting down
Yeah.
some fun stuff. And later on, after 4 or 5 years, I've literally seen impact in her daily life of how she thinks, how she manages her mental wellness, how grateful she is of different things,
Yeah.
how every day is a different theme about your mental wellness as well. And that is something that you personally curate on a daily basis
Yeah.
as a founder. So congratulations
Thank you.
for all of those achievements and many more that you're going to be seeing in your future as
Thank
the
you. I
founder of
mean,
Silk Sonder.
It's members like your wife that really keep me going during the dark times. So appreciate you for having me here, but also for your wife for being such a loyal customer of ours.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I found your product through my wife a few years ago when I was looking for a non-technical product. Someone asked me, "Hey,
Little
can you
did you
find
know, yeah.
can you do some research on a non-technical product
Yeah.
that is great and that has blown your mind?" And I was like, "Okay, let me ask around." So I was looking at some things, and it's very hard to find a non-technical product that is good in your house
Yes.
that you're using. So that's when I figured this out, and now you have transitioned into an AI-driven mental health and wellness company.
Yeah.
Can you share a little bit about what this product is?
Yeah.
How are people using it?
Mm-hmm.
How are you as a CEO or a CPO
Yeah.
differentiating this from the other existing products in the market? And what value does it drive
Yeah.
for you and your customers?
Sure. So Silk Sonder, the way that I describe it, it is an intelligent self-care system that helps people reduce anxiety, stress, and burnout, and helps them live happier, healthier, and longer lives. And we do that by combining the best from positive psychology, bullet journaling, personal development frameworks, and therapy techniques. And so while we have a bunch of products that we're most known for are two memberships. So one is our guided journaling membership, which is exactly what you have in your hands there. And that is an opportunity for people to get a brand new journal meets planner in the mail straight to their doorstep. And in it has a new theme every month. And so we're playing off of the novelty factor, which helps boost motivation, increase confidence, build new skills. And so that's actually one of the things that makes Silk Sonder extremely different is you have new content to look forward to, surprise and delight in the mail. I was a software engineer at StitchFix, and so I noticed that women really appreciate when they have personal curation, but also this joy and satisfaction of what's in it for me this month, right? It's like Christmas in a box. So they get access to this journal, and the science obviously confirms that bringing pen to paper helps alleviate anxiety and stress, heal trauma, increase cognitive function, improve immunity. There's various health benefits, both physiologically and mentally, to bringing pen to paper. But beyond this, and it's funny that you initially classified this as a non-technical product, my insight back then was we have to disconnect in order to reconnect with ourselves and others. And so that's why I launched with this. But the vision was always to bring AI and technology and community into the mix. And so as part of your membership, you get access to our app, which houses what we call daily rituals, which are almost like mini sermons from me. They're these activations where you bring pen to paper through a particular exercise, and we have a new one every single day. And then you also get access to Sonder Club and Sonder Socials, which are our community forum and community events. So I like to describe the journaling membership as almost like a gym for your mind, right? You've got your classes, which are your kind of like the group fitness classes when you go to the gym. You've got the journal, which is your equipment. And then you've also got what we now introduce as a second tier for our members, which is the personalized life coaching. And it's driven by Sonder AI, which is our proprietary AI, algorithm that helps personalize your journey as it pertains to self-discovery, self-awareness, self-trust, and self-actualization. So people can now snap a picture of a journaling activity in the page, upload it to their coach, and their coach will tell them exactly how to answer it based off of the rich personality and mindset data that we house around them. And then also, if you're not yet a member of the journaling side, you can get started with the self-care prescription. So based off of your goals, and again, how you're hardwired, because personalities are fixed. You are kind of born with a personality. They're molded by the age of 7. Mindset and behavior is what you can evolve and change. And so when you feel stressed or anxious, it's typically because you have self-sabotaging beliefs or cognitive distortions that are getting in the way. We help you recognize what that is. And then more importantly, we give you a shortcut to getting to feeling better every day. And then essentially, giving you personalized daily, weekly, and monthly habits to get from point A to point B. And so I always say pick whichever avenue you want to come in, and then you can kind of figure out whether you need to add more tools to your tool belt as you evolve in your self-care journey.
That is fantastic. I have a few follow-up questions, if you
Sure.
don't mind, for someone listening to try to understand what this product exactly is. So I read on your website that you have, there's some great feedback about the product as well from the folks, my wife included. I'm sure she gave you 5, but you have an average of 4.8 rating in CSAT, which is great, right? And you're building some meaningful community, which is in a way giving you feedback that it is valuable for them. One of the biggest value takeaways for me, from this product design was that you have a guided ness to it. Why did you think that was important, and why did others miss it?
Yeah.
Because if you pick any other mental health journal, especially in the journal space, before you started, right, they were not too much in the guidance of stuff. They're just like, here are the tools, play with it however you want. So it's like putting someone in a gym who's never seen a gym, or anyone who's gone to a gym, and just say, hey, do whatever you want, come back fit.
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, like every great founding story, this was rooted in my personal journey. So when I was in my mid-20s, I had gone through my quarter life crises. I had broken up with my shitty ex-boyfriend. I had moved impulsively cross country back to California. And, I had again tried to figure out, is it a job thing? I would switch jobs every couple of years. And then finally I picked myself back up together. I was living in San Francisco, dating my then boyfriend, now husband, working at StitchFix, which at the time was a quiet unicorn on the verge of going public, living in a new city. And so finally there was this facade that life was great, right? But when I looked out into the tools that were out there, because I was still waking up underfulfilled, disconnected from my purpose, burnt out, there was nothing, right? Therapy felt intimidating to navigate. It also felt not as solutions oriented as I wanted. Coaching was not as popular as it is today, extremely expensive and unclear what the results were going to be. Self-help books were inspirational but lacked accountability, and meditation was boring. And so I really had no choice but to bring pen to paper, but all I had were these empty diaries, right? So I didn't know that journaling was much more than just, dear diary, this is how my day, this is what was my day, or these are my feelings.
Which
This isn't. This is not a blank journal. But to answer your question on why guided, I really was craving structure to blend reflection, intention, and action, right? And these books were so amazing. All the personal development research, I mean, so fantastic. But again, there was nothing guided for me. So I had to create the guide for myself. I had to figure out, okay, I'm going to put a little bit of gratitude today. I'm going to put the things that are giving me anxiety and the things that I want to accomplish. And from here, what habits can I start to do? And that's when I started to realize that there was this golden opportunity for me to build something that was guided enough to help people get started. And then still flexible to make it their own. And I think
all of this thought was without the intention of creating a product.
This was without the intention.
This was all for solving your problem for yourself.
This was solving my problem myself. Eventually, I was starting to use a lot of the pages that we had through my own blank diary, and that's when it clicked, because I started to preach what I was doing with my friends. And they're like, oh, but it's too much work to do that myself. And so I was like, oh, what if I remix the best research-backed techniques, put it into a little booklet? And I also had this insight of doing it monthly, because why should you wait until January 1st to start your life again, right?
So why were you thinking this way? Was it like, did you know that this is going to be like a multi-million-dollar company one day? Or you were working at Stitch and you were like, oh, maybe startup.
Yeah.
That's the sort of framework I live in from 9 to 5, and maybe that's what got you thinking?
Yeah, it's a great question.
Would you walk us through that?
Yeah, so when I quit my job at Goldman, I joined the Muse as their third engineer and eighth employee, and that was my first preview into what working for a YC-backed company looked like. It was my first time working with female founders. It was my first time working on products that actually solved problems of women that I could empathize with.
And you had not worked as product before.
No,
you had
I
worked
was
as
software engineer. I eventually worked as a product manager for a mobile app agency.
You did?
Yeah, but that was later. But I always thought I wanted to be a product manager, but my first foray into entrepreneurship was being at the Muse, because I noticed that I was like, oh, this is a path I could potentially go down. And so I started building, at the time, a luxury wedding planning platform, which got me nowhere because I never really launched it. I took user feedback in private and didn't really do anything about it. And so Silk Sonder was my productivity system while I was a founder of my other company. And I told myself, I'm going to give myself 2 weeks. I'm going to do things totally different than how I'm running this side project of mine. And I'm going to ask people for feedback. I'm going to go to a printing press and print 20 copies of this. And I'm going to see if people want it.
Wow.
And that 2-week pivot or break is what led to Silk Sonder.
I used to work at Amazon. This is a fantastic story for that.
Yeah.
They always say this, when you join Amazon the first day, they show you the story of how AWS was made.
Yeah.
So they started figuring out how cloud computing can be better for a faster retail for Amazon.
Yeah.
And that's how they started solving problems for themselves that no other person was solving. And then they stumbled, just like you. They were like, oh, this looks like a business idea.
Yeah.
This looks like it has some viability or feasibility.
Totally.
Not just beyond, like, for their use cases, but even beyond that.
Yeah.
So today you have AWS, you have Azure as a top competitors in cloud. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about your inception story. Like, you were born and raised in America.
Yes.
To Indian parents.
Yes.
Were they immigrants? Were you first American?
Yes.
Like a firstborn?
Yeah, they came here in the late 1980s.
Gen.
Yeah.
Okay. And what were they doing? Can you share a little bit more about your background?
Yeah. So my parents met in the late 80s. My dad was actually getting his PhD at Stony Brook when my mom got married and joined him. Then they moved to Santa Barbara, where they've been ever since. They still are there. And he took up a faculty position as a professor at UC Santa Barbara. And my mom actually was getting her master's when she ended up pregnant with me, dropped out of her master's program because she had to essentially contribute to the household income, and also started working at the university in the administrative side.
Would it be safe to say that your childhood was laden with any adversities that any average immigrant would face?
Absolutely. I mean, I think looking back, it's not like it was so filled with adversity that there was never food on the table, but that chip on your shoulder, that feeling of my parents sacrificed everything to give me a better life. They've left their family behind.
Yeah.
Both my parents were working. So for the first 5 years before I had a sister, it was just me. So when they're busy with either household things or work, I had to entertain myself, probably where I get my jack of all interests. But I mean, I think I definitely felt that, and especially growing up in Santa Barbara, California, which is predominantly Caucasian, it was a dichotomy that I lived in, because my parents, at least had access to their immigrant friends because they worked at an institution like UC Santa Barbara. So my family friend circle was pretty diverse. But when I started kindergarten, it was all white. And so I never quite felt like I belonged. So I navigated that in addition to kind of being that eldest daughter role model for my sister as the years went by. But yeah, it was definitely a struggle. And I think my parents had me, earlier than they had planned, and so they didn't have the financial means. They bought things from garage sales and things like that. So growing up, I kind of had to make do with the limited stuff that I had.
So were these like self-adopted aspirations?
Which parts?
To grow out of, say, a status, or to do better, or to be financially stable?
Well, I think
Or were your parents
kind of
sort of asking
broke that.
for help as well?
No. I think my parents have always been. My dad's very ambitious. He's pretty well known in his field. So for me, I think dreaming was allowed, and there was permission to dream, but there were guardrails, right? So I think financial stability was something that I experienced because they saved money and ended up doing better and better. But we were never super duper wealthy where money is just thrown around and all of that. So I think for me, success really was about stability and security and higher education. So I think even now my dad jokes, he's like, do you want to go back and get your PhD in psychology maybe? And I'm like, I feel like I deserve an honerary PhD at this point. But growing up, it was be a doctor, lawyer, academic, or an engineer, and that's it. So I did that. But yeah, I think that was my. I just felt like I was taught at a very young age that hard work trumps all, and if you focus on hard work and if you're the best in whatever you do, then money will follow.
So if I had to show like a 5-minute montage or a 3-minute montage of you in school or childhood, what would that be? You
Great question.
Being great at school.
Yeah.
A lot of stationaries around you.
Yeah, great question.
How can I picture that? As a filmmaker, I'm just trying to make a film out of this.
So, I mean, I think if you were to, it's around 4 or 5 years old, I feel like the visual that comes to mind is me with coloring books, my Barbies, my puzzle pieces, just a bunch of activities, screen-free activities back then to keep me entertained because I had so much energy and I had so many interests. But my parents were working parents, so they only had so much bandwidth, right? I was very loved, but there's only so much attention you can give to a kid, right? Yeah. And I remember I would always go to my dad and say, I'm bored, Dad, I'm bored. And he would say, you're not allowed to use that word in the house. If you're bored, go read a book. And I was like, that sounds even more boring. So I stopped going to him to complain that I was bored. But it was very much that. And then if you fast forward into elementary school, my nanny was there when my sister was born, right before I started kindergarten.
So your maternal,
my mom's mom.
Mom's mom, yeah.
Yeah, and so grandma, and so she was tasked with teaching me cursive and teaching me multiplication tables before kindergarten because my parents thought I needed to be prepared. And then I go to kindergarten and my dad's like, what did you learn today? And I said, oh, shapes and colors. And he's like, this is the American education, is learning shapes and colors in kindergarten. So I think I just had, I was a little bit smarter than the average. Wow. And so if you wanted to get a montage of me in elementary school or early elementary school, it was this ever so curious kid who was excellent at art, excellent at math, always the one to raise her hand.
So your teachers are not surprised that you're a CEO of a company right now?
They probably are not surprised.
They're not?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think my parents are more surprised than my teachers.
Huh.
Yeah.
Why do you say that?
I think my teachers, especially in the early years, Mrs. Aguchi was my second grade teacher, and she, I think, saw something in me before my parents or myself saw anything.
Tell me more about Mrs. Aguchi.
Yeah.
Why is that important?
Mrs. Aguchi, she was my second grade teacher, And I learned many years later that I had the opportunity to skip a grade that my parents decided against. But she essentially kind of relayed to my parents that this girl is special. Like, she learns very quickly. She wants to help others. Apparently, I used to ask if I could stay in during recess to teach this kid named Luis math, because I just couldn't conceptualize. I couldn't understand how something that came so easy to me was so hard for him. And so I think at that time my dad was thinking, oh, she might be a professor one day, right? But
Because he was
yeah, because he was a professor. Like, oh, she likes teaching. But it was less about teaching. It was all about, like how can we as a community really help
No, but
each
in
other?
all seriousness, was this something that you picked up from one of your parents or people around you?
Oh, this like desire to teach, probably. I
Or
mean,
desire to help, rather.
help. I think both my parents are very, very helpful people, and I mean, they're both middle children, and so they're always, and I'm also married to a middle child,
my
so
God.
you can only imagine what that's like. But I think they're extremely, they're very helpful with their friends. They're helpful with, as parents, even now, they help take care of my daughter, and I think
So they were never like, you should be a software engineer or something like that.
They never,
What was the conversation around
yeah,
you?
they never forced me into a focus area, but I would say there was clearly for example, in high school, I was in robotics, I was in leadership, I was in mock trial. Like, I did so many things, and my father would always tell me, Beta, you need to focus, right? Like, pick a lane, just do it.
Don't be a jack of all.
Yeah, don't be a jack of all. Like, you have to focus, because that's what he was good at focusing, right? I, on the other hand, got bored,
Professors.
professors, right? Engineering professors. But I think if I actually look underneath the hood, my dad has multiple interests. He just cultivates one.
And that's the hypothesis of my show.
Yes.
Because I was talking to a friend over the weekend, and he was like, how are you going to find these many jack of alls? There are not many jack of alls. I said, hello.
Yeah.
That's the hypothesis, that
Yeah.
everybody is a jack of all.
Totally.
And what I've noticed is, even people, when I talk to you, right, and other guests, even on the show, they come and they say a couple of new things that I had no knowledge about.
Yeah.
So it's kind of very common practice for people to just ignore anything that is not their primary strength.
Yes.
Even if that is just
Yeah.
like the next best thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow, interesting. So then, how did you end up as a software engineer?
Yeah, so I remember in high school, I was in the engineering academy. Nothing about engineering was really interesting me, right? But I decided to go to USC. Initially, I was going to do biomedical engineering because I thought maybe I'd want to be a doctor, and this would give me a little bit of, like opportunity to go down either the BME track or.
Who was consulting you at that time?
It was actually just me. In my head, I had convinced myself that being an engineer.
Because if someone told me, right, someone created this
Yeah.
and asked me as a filmmaker, what background would you paint
Yeah.
for them? I'll be like, I'll paint a background where nobody helps them.
Yes. Yeah.
So they're striving to help themselves.
Selves,
And
yeah.
in that process, this is like
Yeah.
their character arc. Is
Yeah.
that true?
Totally true. I don't think I ever, I mean, I'll go back to the Mrs. Iguchi story. There's something called a diorama where you use a shoebox to create a scene from a book. That was one of the
Diorama. I
It's
have
called
no
diorama.
idea.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
is this what is it?
This is one of the assignments. So if you
Okay.
ask any American kid, they probably were
Okay,
asked
American
to. Yeah,
kid.
American kid. You create a diorama, which is supposed to be a scene of a book that you read, and all the other kids told their parents about it. So their parents got clay and all these fancy things to create these fancy shoebox scenes.
Okay.
For me, I never asked for help. I just went into the garage. I found a shoebox. I used paper and colored pencils to draw my little, stick figures that were falling back and forth. And then we go to the open house, and everyone has these beautiful like productions of their scenes from the book, and I have this like really ugly looking diorama. And so I cried, and my teacher said, "At least, Meha, I know you did it yourself." And so I think that's really an example of my character. It's like, don't ask for help. Mom and dad are busy. Even if they wanted to help me, I knew that I don't want to stress dad out. I don't want them to feel like they have to buy material. So I'll just do it my way. I'll just do it. So that's kind of, I've just been, all the pressure that I've put on myself is self-inflicted.
Yeah.
And so I think, in how I got into software engineering, when I was a freshman in college, I realized computer science is the only engineering major where I could go into beauty, I could go into fashion, I could go into any industry I wanted as a software engineer. even though I didn't even know what a software engineer really did. But I knew that computer science was the only way I could get there versus if I chose BME, I'd be stuck. If I chose chemical, I'd be stuck.
So you had this very simple kind of understanding that with the process of elimination, maybe I don't know where I need to go, but
Yeah.
I know where I don't need to be stuck.
Totally. Or it's a jack of all, right? It's like I
would like
want
to
to hop from
keep my
beauty to
doors
fashion.
open.
Exactly. And so I have many interests. I don't know where I want to sign up for
But
the
then
rest of my
software
life.
engineering is not easy.
Oh, it's
So
not.
how did that?
Yeah.
You were good at math and everything.
Yeah.
So you got support. You went to school.
Yeah.
You did your software engineering. Then you started working.
Yeah.
Okay. And then what was the first job like for you?
Yeah, so I worked at Goldman Sachs, but even in college, computer science was extremely difficult, right? I think I was very good at the theoretical side, like classes like algorithms and things, data structures, all of that. But then the application side of actually coding was the bane of my existence. Like I hated every minute of it. And then you go be a software engineer, and that's exactly what your job is, right? You're coding all day. And all these people are, mostly introverts at the time, just finding debugging to be meditative. And I'm sitting there being like, this is ridiculous. Why wasn't it built the right way in the first place, right?
I've never heard that. Debugging was meditative.
Yeah, people find it. It's like solving a puzzle, right? Like, where did this break? And I'm like, why didn't the last engineer build this the right way? Why am I here? So when I was at Goldman, I think very quickly I felt burnt out. And I think too many people think of burnout as overdrive. You're working all the time, and obviously Goldman has that reputation too. But in my case, burnout was really this disconnection from purpose, right? I didn't give a crap about the sales and trading desk I was supporting. I didn't care about financial services as an industry and like the software problems around that. And so day in and day out, I was stuck on this desk job that really was not fulfilling. And so
most corporate burnouts are, the white collar jobs are emotional burnouts.
I think so. I think
they're
it
not
depends.
as much as physical.
Yeah,
burnout.
I think it depends, right? Like some people, like doctors, might be physically burnt out, but I think
like how do you think about that? So maybe tying it a little back to the design of the, so this is the monthly copy I have right now,
right.
and this is a blank copy, right? And I am having maybe some issues in my workplace and things like that, and I'm just jotting things down, etc. How do you as a company, as a responsible company, as a research driven responsible company, how do you induce those
Solutions
techniques here for me to be able to do that without you knowing directly what my issue is?
So I think, first of all, we try to get to know what your direct issues are. So when you join Silk Sonder as a program, you fill out a survey, and then if you join our AI portion of it, then we have you take a questionnaire where we ask you a bunch of questions. And again, we ask you to take all these personality assessments. And Silk Sonder actually has a proprietary assessment that we created called the Cognitive Distortions Assessment. So we know how you negatively thought spiral. And so if you have a tendency, for example, for me, I have a tendency to catastrophize. So I'll think of worst case scenarios for everything, right? If we know that about you, then when it comes to burnout, you might be thinking, oh, if I don't continue working this many hours, my boss might fire me, or whatever, things like that. So Silk Sonder really helps because it helps release the emotional turmoil that might be in your head. For some people, that looks like brain dumping. For others, that might be gratitude stacking. And yet for others, it might be doodling or coloring. And so in Silk Sonder's journals, we have various stress-reducing activities. Ultimately, Silk Sonder is about giving you a shortcut to heighten your self-awareness, because when you become aware of what type of burnout you have, or what things are getting in the way, or if you're not feeling satisfied in your family life, or with your spouse, or whatever it might be, you might realize that something from home is actually bothering you and is affecting your performance at work, or vice versa.
How is this? How do you see this as a company? How do you see this as a tool? And you mentioned earlier, this as a tool, a vitamin, or a vaccine,
or a painkiller.
Yeah. How do you do that?
So for some people that come to Silk Sonder is a proactive solution, right? It is.
What do you mean by that?
It's a total vitamin. It's like an emotional health vitamin. You are doing your daily practice or weekly practice with Silk Sonder because it's helping you prevent a big emotional reaction to something awful that might happen down the line.
So what you mean by that is, if I am an individual who does not have an actively medically identified or any issue, mental issue, health issue right now, I can adopt this product
Yeah.
and this will be proactively helping me
Totally.
manage
It's like going to the
future.
gym, right? Like if you get in shape and then you eat a really crappy sandwich one day or pizza or whatever, like you'll probably be fine, right? But if you're eating pizza day in and day out and not doing anything about it, then it's gonna cause issues, right? So that's one. We have a lot of customers who come here as a reactive measure too. So life's hit the fan, they're going through a divorce, they've lost themselves completely, and Silk and Sonder helps get them back on track. And why? It's because we have essentially remixed the best from therapy techniques. So, you know, whether you're listening to our daily rituals on the app, whether you are communicating with the community, we have narrative therapy, art therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy techniques that are embedded into that programming.
Narrative therapy,
Art therapy, cognitive
as an
behavioral
NRI
therapy.
or
Yeah.
an Indian,
Yeah.
these are like all new
Oh, terms.
concepts, or
Yes.
you know, maybe even for a lot of Americans,
Yeah.
these will be new
Yeah,
concepts.
totally.
So, what is narrative therapy, art therapy? These are just different avenues that you provide to
Right.
write,
So
to share.
total, yeah. So basically, you know, there's various forms and modalities of therapy. I'm not a trained expert. However, we have borrowed some of that expertise from psychologists. So narrative therapy is all about stream of consciousness writing. It's been proven to reduce anxiety and stress, right?
see.
Art therapy, for some people, it's about coloring. It's about putting things together. When you use a creative part of your brain, you end up unlocking more productivity and more joy just by the notion of taking a break. And so for some people, that's what they need at the time.
Yeah.
And then, you know, there's also like nature related stuff. So in some of our daily rituals, or we have a noticing nature game that comes every couple months in the journals, it's about being outside, and there's, you know, therapeutic benefits to doing that, right? And cognitive behavioral therapy is just about thoughts lead to action. So how do you, you know, control your thoughts? And there's some people don't agree with everything. And so Silk and Sonder is giving you kind of a taste of all the various modalities. We also just have regular prompts, right, in the journals. And then we have habit tracking and mood tracking and sleep tracking because as I talked about earlier, mental well-being is the node, right?
Yes.
And there's inputs that go into that. So what you eat, how you sleep, what you do really impacts your moods. But at the same time, mental well-being is kind of that center that impacts every other area of your life. If you yourself are not feeling good, how are you going to show up as a parent, as a spouse, as a colleague, as a friend, right?
In a way, this makes you aware of everything that you're doing today.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, because if I don't do that, right, sometimes you just
don't
ask
know.
me what happened last Tuesday.
You don't know.
I'll not
Yeah.
be able to tell you
Yeah,
exactly
yeah.
what I was wearing,
Totally.
who I met, what I
Totally.
ate, like, you know, all those things.
Yeah.
And it becomes a little difficult. From that point of view, as a company, how do you give the confidence to your users that you are researched back, or all the techniques that you're sharing are going to be helpful? And how do you learn back through the feedback? Like, do you actually go and talk to the customers
Oh,
or
yeah.
read the community testimonials?
Yeah.
Please share a little bit
I
more
mean,
about that.
the product manager in me, when it's the shortcut to product market fit is remembering that your customer is your biggest stakeholder and they're the ones shelling out the dollars. So ask them, right? And they might not be able to tell you exactly what to build for them, but they'll tell you what their pain points are, and then you can build around it. So ever since day one, I mean, I started a Facebook group at the time, not knowing that it would be the precursor to one of the best communities out there, right? I would get on the phone and ask open-ended questions. I think that's really how we got to product market fit so quickly with the journal, because I was just so deeply embedded in understanding their problems. And quite frankly, Silk and Sonder evolved from a tool that I needed for myself to a tool for others because I realized I wasn't the power user. I was a super user, but the power user had very different problems than me. And so I started to build around that. And I think that is what has made Silk and Sonder so successful is I separated chasing the shiny object that I wish existed to actually building for the customer base that was paying me for the product.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing
Yeah.
that. The growth from an individual who builds a product to a leader who wants to make a true impact to
totally.
people and reach them and make it meaningful.
Yeah.
Was it hard?
It's hard because I think, well, it was hard in the beginning because I I would try to get advice from my friends who were not paying me money for the product. And then I said, this advice is cheap. Like they're not even paying, like, why am I listening to you, right? And then I think it got easier when I put my ego away and I said, okay, it's not about building the prettiest journal. It's not about putting gold, embossed stuff on the cover. Or initially I thought I needed to personalize every single person's journal, but the community loves talking about these shared activities that exist. They find creativity in repurposing pages that don't serve them. And so noticing that and understanding that, oh, it's not a big deal if someone wants to take the coloring page and put a sticker over it and do something else with it, rather than, oh, I need to take out the coloring page for this person, because my hypotheses were totally off on what I thought the customer needed. So it was hard in the sense, like, as a founder, you want to build, I wanted to build this luxury wellness brand with candles and bath bombs, and we have that, but that's not what sells as well as our memberships. And so I think you find joy in the messiness of talking to your users, because you realize you don't have to be perfect to launch. I mean, what you build is already a bridge for so many people.
Amazing. That's a good segue into asking you something. We started this podcast by saying that I was looking for a physical product.
Yeah.
Now, this physical product has went through many transitions, but it has also gone through an important evolution recently, which is going from a non-tech to a slightly tech-assisted few years ago with you yourself giving the audios every day for guided assistance, and now into AI. Can you share more about how the usage of the product has changed now with AI, and a new user, what would they experience when they subscribe to Silk Sonder today?
Yeah. So a new user, if they were to come to Silk Sonder today, can choose which path to take first. So if they are looking for something that is more pen to paper heavy, and they want something physical to disconnect, I always say start with our guided journaling membership and then upgrade to include the AI portion, because the AI portion just supercharges everything. It kind of takes you from figuring out the pages on your own or going to a community event and trying to figure it out to suddenly being totally tailored to what you need, because we know your current state, your upbringing, your setbacks, all of that, your personality, your mindset. For those that are maybe not ready to commit to a longer practice, because the journals, whether you do it once a week or a couple times a week or every day, it requires 5 minutes a day. With our personalized life coaching offering, that is for the people that are maybe the busy bees, that are maybe skeptical of, oh, I don't want a whole journal, I don't have time for that. So you start there and you get these personalized daily self-care prescriptions, right? I say it's like lifestyle medicine. And so if you enjoy self-awareness, self-discovery, but you're looking for kind of something less something that requires less commitment, then you can start there. But what we find is even those people kind of reap the benefits of bringing pen to paper in a blank journal and can upgrade by adding the journal. So it's like a Venn diagram. Some people are going to do one or the other, and then you have that sweet spot of people who want all the tools and they buy both. But I think the AI product is also very, very good for people who are maybe advanced journalers like myself, where this is great, but I use my Silk Sonder more as a productivity and planning tool than I do a journaling tool, because I like to write pages and pages of stuff, but I find myself stuck. And I started, Sonder AI or our personalized life coaching when I was pregnant, and I didn't open my journals for 3 months because I was throwing up all the time and I just was feeling awful. And in that moment, my husband couldn't help me, my mom and dad couldn't help me, my friends probably didn't even know I was pregnant at the time. So where do I go? I was like, wow, I wish I could just text my coach and she could just give me activities to do or visualizations to feel, and nothing existed. And that's why I created.
So like an AI therapist,
yes,
in a way. Is that the direction the company is taking right now?
It's one feature. The AI therapist part is one feature.
But is it personalized?
It's personalized.
That's what I was thinking, because the physical barrier that you had with printing was that you can only give a set template to print, and then you got 100 million copies of that. But with AI, you can personalize, predict.
You can personalize, you can evolve with the user. And you can get feedback in real time. It's phenomenal. And working at StitchFix, I always knew that I wanted to personalize mental well-being and personal well-being and personal growth. But I thought I'd have to raise money to hire a big army of data scientists. And so when generative AI came out, it's like, holy crap, we might not need to do that. Let's go. Yeah, exactly.
That's amazing. That's great. You're one of the live examples of people leveraging AI to at a founder level.
Yeah.
To be able to be scrappy, to be
Yeah.
able to be nimble, to be able to experiment and do different things with their
Yeah.
product, right? So this is amazing. Wow. Let's talk a little bit about the challenges of being the founder, the CEO.
Yeah.
I already congratulated you on being the top 2% women who were funded by any VC. But then this show is not just about accolades and laurels. It's about the struggles and what you write behind the scene.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit more about transitioning from building a product that you love to now getting money from people to be able to relinquish creative control, mission control. Maybe that's not the case.
Yeah.
Your VCs are wonderful people.
Yeah,
Probably
yeah.
they're very well-known people.
Yeah.
But again, like, what are some challenges that you, again, maybe a good way to do this is as a filmmaker.
Huh.
At this point of the film, what I would write is a scene
Yeah.
where someone comes to you and says, Meha, you know what? This is going to take a lot out of your life. These are big people.
Yeah.
This is going to be tough.
Yeah.
Are you sure you want to do that?
Yeah.
This StitchFix job is great.
Yeah.
Maybe this journal is a hobby.
Yeah.
Maybe just keep it to a state.
Yeah.
Why don't just let it be printed?
Yeah.
Why do you want to get into AI?
Yeah.
Is this hype? Is AI really going to help you? Are you, all those things that a founder goes through.
Yeah.
I would write that as a
Yeah.
filmmaker. in that.
Yeah.
Can you tell me? Are you getting flashbacks?
Oh,
or
so
you
mad.
wanna
Like,
share?
where do I even start? So, starting at the beginning, I delayed starting this company full time. So, Silk Sonder was a nights and weekends project for almost a year or so. This was before the pandemic. I was full time at my jobs. I had landed an offer from Bonobos to be a product manager there. And I was on a trip with my then boyfriend, now husband. And he kind of looked at me and he said, "You have 1,000 customers."
You had 1,000 customers?
I had 1,000 customers,
Paying
paying
monthly?
customers monthly. So we were already doing like 15, 20K a month, which, post revenue,
You don't need
post
to do
product.
anything after that, like for a while. You know what I mean? Unless you're a really aspirational person,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
That's a lot of money.
It is. It's probably not enough to, cut me a living wage, but it was enough to be like, there's something here. But I was living in New York at the time. I didn't want to ask my parents for money. There was like all these kind of mental blocks and barriers. And my, then boyfriend, now husband, looked at me and said, "Look, I've been dating the CEO for a while. What do you have to lose? You've already built the safety nets. You can go back to your product job after if things don't work out. Why don't you just give yourself a little bit of time to see if you want to do this full time or not?" And it's the best. It was kind of like, it was constructive advice, but it was what I needed to hear. And I told myself in 6 months, I either am going to bootstrap this enough to pay myself a little bit of money, or I'm going to raise money. And in those 6 months, I had to do my own reflection to decide, is venture for me? Because all I heard from people were, "Oh, like, it's a journal company. You already have a gross margin. You don't need any, funding." And I remember like asking myself, do I want to build a very big business or not? And for me, having large scale positive impact and wanting to integrate, I always knew I wanted to integrate AI in this space. I knew I would need funding to hire a team, to be able to experiment. As a jack of all, I am somebody who likes to dabble. So many of Silk & Sonder's greatest features came because I just had a creative idea and I tested it and the members loved it. Now we are like, we're a physical product, we're a digital product, we're a community product. We have so many features that people love. It's almost like a self-care buffet, but that came because I followed my instinct. And so funding was one of those things that I was going back and forth, and it was such a trying experience. I mean, it was not easy getting those checks initially. But again, I did things my way. Instead of treating it like a numbers game, I looked at investor company fit. I noticed that the investors that were saying yes to me had a similar profile. They were burnt out executives. They were mostly men in their mid-40s that had been burnt out, understood the space, kind of admired the community piece that I was building. They loved that I had the brand as the moat and that I wanted to personalize. And so, the fastest check I got was when I walked in, had no idea what I was pitching, and he looked at me and he said, "Meha, you are building your moat. You've got community, you've got personalization, you've got brand, and you've got a physical digital thing going on. Like, this is a very different type of company." And I think those types of moments is what gave me the confidence to continue. But of course, my Indian father was like, "Oh, we don't take money from anybody. Like, you're gonna owe people things. Like, it's so bad." And
कर्जा क्यों लेना किसी से?
exactly. Exactly.
Why to be in debt?
Exactly. Exactly.
That's a nightmare statement for someone
It
who's a
was-
capitalist or a founder
Yeah,
or
I
someone in
know,
VC.
I know. And it took many years for me to realize just because I took your money doesn't mean I have to listen to all your advice. These are just ideas. I'm the one running the show.
You had to choose your battles though?
I had to choose my battles. But I think when I first fundraised, I thought that my VCs were my boss. So I was constantly checking in with them. I was asking for their ideas. And then they would some of them were good, but some of them were like, they were just trying to be helpful, but
I
they don't
see.
know the product or the member base, right? And so now finally I'm at a point where, maybe we're not doing everything correctly. We didn't go off and get our Series A, Series B. We haven't done that. But I think we're still in business and we've got a loyal community. And I'm kind of going back to the drawing board and deciding what type of company do I want to build? Am I building the next Nike or Walt Disney or a legacy brand that's outliving my lifetime, or am I just trying to get that quick exit? And for me, I want to build a really big business. I want to have life-changing impact, and I feel like we've just scratched the surface. And so that's kind of the
Absolutely.
journey
No,
I was
I
on.
think fantastic. Thanks for sharing that. I
Yeah.
want to add two things there,
Yeah.
which I hope helps you
Yeah.
also get sort of a vote of confidence into what you need to do with this product. I feel number one, I do see Meha leaking into all the work here, right? So I feel like you're deeply ingrained with the
Yeah.
product. I feel like it's going to be slightly tricky for you to dissociate from the product, and then the product to still be the same value to
Yeah.
the users. So I feel like you're an important creator, CEO, like you,
Yeah.
like any creator, founder, CEO should be. Second thing, I feel like when I mentioned the non-product thing, non-technical product thing, someone gave me the same reaction. Oh, you got a journal.
Yeah.
And I said, aha,
Yeah.
that's not a journal,
Yeah.
dude. That's a mental health tool.
Yeah.
I can evolve this into a
Yeah.
technical space easily,
Yeah.
very easily.
Yeah.
But what you really need is the research-backed methodologies, frameworks, techniques that are helpful, vote of confidence from actual users, and a community that can stand behind you, right?
Yeah.
To be able to do so many other things that you can do with.
Totally.
I'm pretty sure this isn't like the only thing that you are passionate about, right? You are a builder probably by nature, and probably this is the biggest thing you have built so far.
Yeah.
Do you agree with those things?
Yeah, I mean, just yesterday, after dinner, I was tinkering around and I created a children's book.
You
know?
did?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you told me about
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Okay, I
So
see, yeah.
so I have very many interests, and I think my husband actually has a Instagram where we go to restaurants and wineries and he consults for Michelin's, and so I really enjoy that adventurous side. So there's just I have so many interests beyond Silk and Sonder, but to me, it's all connected because it's about my core values, right? I love my luxury lifestyle. I love going to a nice hotel or restaurant, and I love admiring the interior decor, like all of that kind of stuff. But what's so exciting when you are a founder who isn't obsessed with her product, but you're obsessed with the problem you're solving, there is so much opportunity to continue to innovate.
Absolutely.
And so right now what I'm working on for the AI product is, one thing I don't love about every generative AI product that I've used out there is how user-driven it is. We assume that the user knows what they want. Most of the time they don't. And that's why people, the average person probably doesn't use ChatGPT as a therapist, and you have to really productize it, right? And so for me, it's how do I take all these activities that I did with my coach foundationally, my ideal day, my 5-year vision, all these things. How do we teach people to dream again? And then provide that data to us so that we can give them mini visualizations, so that's almost this dose of inspiration. And so within Silk and Sonder, I feel like I have so many interests, which is why the company continues to expand its product line. I think, we're essentially competing for timeshare, right? We want to be embedded into people's lives from the moment they wake up to the moment they go to bed. So you wake up to the journal, you then continue daily checking in on Sonder Club, listening to a daily ritual, maybe doing your daily self-care prescription. And so I think, beyond that, I really love kind of my South Asian heritage. So there's a lot of interest around that. And the best part about being a South Asian founder with a community that is every ethnicity is I get to bring that joy and love for things outside of Silk and Sonder into the community.
Thank you so much. I definitely wanted to touch upon that point, is that being a part of the Southeast Asian community, I feel like mental health and conversations around that are very novel,
Yeah.
um, scattered, unstructured,
Yeah.
reduced to few people, friends, and
Yep.
folks that you know. Um, and I really appreciate individuals who go above and beyond to build products and platforms that give, these kind of supporting tools and frameworks to individuals that are outside of India. If you don't mind, I want to give a shout out to another creator just like you.
Yeah.
One of my friends I met this weekend, he created an AI based chat app for kids
Oh.
called Curie AI.
Oh, cute.
And it basically does the same thing.
Yeah.
So I asked him, like, hey, what is the kind of, like, why did you create this, right? Like,
Yeah.
what are you solving for?
Yeah.
Like, what do you need to do here? And he's like, I feel like the American kids, Indian kids, especially Indian American kids, don't know how to communicate their or express
Yeah.
their feelings,
Yeah.
whether they're good or bad.
Yeah.
It's just that very different from other Caucasian or
Yeah.
American
Yeah.
kids or
Yeah.
non-American kids that are not Indian.
Yeah.
And it goes a lot back to the culture. So he's
Right.
dealing with the culture. I think you are also dealing a lot with
Yeah.
those things, but he's dealing with something very different.
Right.
And I feel like all of these products could at some point of time integrate into different things,
yeah.
because I feel like you have a very strong base of women, working category, men, maybe parents of younger kids
Yeah.
category.
Yeah.
Am I correct?
Yeah, and that's actually why we launched Sonder Kids in the pandemic, because
Amazing.
we realized, in order for the mom to get time to herself, what is the family doing? And we're also going to be launching a couples edition because, again, it's about serving women and her communities.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
That is fantastic.
She controls 86% of the household income, so we had to start there, and she's also twice as likely to suffer from, things like depression, anxiety, PTSD. So that
Wow.
was just a focus area.
Yeah. I just want to give a quick shout out to all of those immigrant creators in the United States and outside of India who are actually taking care about the cultural context of how products need to be made or problems need to be solved. And tools like Silk and Sonder and Curie AI are something that I really appreciate and I want to see be successful for helping our community grow and stay strong, both in physical and the mental space.
Yeah.
That said, another scene I want to write.
Yeah.
Okay, so she's convinced the VCs.
Yeah. Done.
Everything's
Yeah.
set. We are going through the motions. She learns she's pregnant now.
Yeah.
Boom.
I still remember that day. So it happened not too long ago. Guess it must have been 2024. And by this point, I had recently let go of certain people on my team. I was pretty stressed. I was, looking for a way to expand the brand. Didn't feel ready to have a kid, but the clock is ticking, right? I'm in my mid-30s now. And so I find out I'm pregnant, and I was like, wait, what? Like, this quickly? I thought I had a couple more months here to get my company up and, into a better place, to get my headspace into a better place. I mean, I've grown up with Silk and Sonder, right? I started Silk and Sonder, as a nights and weekends in my late 20s, went full-time when I was 29. And so everything from getting engaged, getting married, oh my God, planning a wedding while being a founder was arguably even harder than being pregnant and being a
Did
founder.
you use your own journal while you
I
were
did. I
planning
even
your-
thought very heavily on whether I should create like a wedding wellness
Yeah, I'm pretty
journal.
sure you did.
And I was like, by the time I create this, I never want to talk about weddings, because everyone's values are tested at once. There's in Indian weddings, there's like so many people's opinions, and then I also didn't realize that I would be equally CEO-y about that. At first, I was like, oh, I don't care, and then I'm like, no, if I'm going to be there, if I'm the spotlight here, it needs to be my vision. So anyways, pregnant, I find out, I think, it's interesting because I learned a new skill when I was pregnant and being a founder. As a founder, I try to control everything. I no matter how much I trust the team, I still like to be in the details. I am a creator. I'm a visionary. I want to be involved in every aspect, like you mentioned. Yes, I'm in every single page. I'm in every single part of the app. My community looks up to me, and here I was for the first time physically feeling not like myself at all. I did not realize that I would have such low ambition, and I remember turning to my husband and saying, oh my God, will I ever get my ambition back? And it was a very scary moment for me. And, you know, luckily my assistant, she has a baby or she has a daughter. And so she said, you'll get it back. You'll get it back. I'm like, I don't know. I don't know
So it
if
was
I
more
will.
internal than external
It
because
was-
the
yeah.
scene that I was going to write
Yeah.
is everybody doubting your
Oh,
capabilities.
no, it was totally internal.
Wow, I
yeah.
love that. I love that.
And it was a
Okay.
lot of my VCs also telling me, like, there's no perfect time. Like, you just, it's like, this is a great thing. And in that moment, I was very nervous about it because I didn't know what to do. But you know what I learned? I learned how to trust and I learned how to surrender. Two things I never really did with the company. I was always like, oh my God, CAC is high. What's going on? What are the inputs? How do, you know, like an engineer debugging the company and figuring out what's broken. I learned how to just let it go. And for 2-3 months, I remember thinking, oh my God, what if we run out of money? What's going to happen? I don't even know. And we survived, right? And then I came back second trimester and third trimester with the AI idea. I got it built while being
came
pregnant.
up with the AI idea during
while
the
I was
second and third
pregnant. Because I
trimester.
wasn't touching my journals. And I was like, you know, this whole time I was always thinking, oh, Silk and Sonder would be perfect for women who find out they're pregnant. No, because you're just trying to survive at that point. And no one talks about it, right? And I think I have a lot of anger towards women's health in general in the US, but that's not the problem I'm solving right now. I'm solving what I think I can control, which is women's well-being.
What about after?
After I had the baby?
Yeah.
Oh, well, that was also a whole thing
Yeah.
because I
would naturally, as a product manager,
Yeah.
product manager to product manager,
Yeah.
I would think that there would be a special edition called
Postpartum. Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And that would be something that would be truly, truly helpful.
Totally.
How, did you think that? What was your own journey through that?
I think for me, what was really helpful was having a community, and
your own community, which is
my
the
own
Silk and Sonder.
community.
How
And
did that help you? Did you actually share your issues
I
with them?
shared. Well, initially I shared that I was pregnant, and then everybody wrote me advice on like motherhood and all of that kind of stuff.
Where was this happening? On the Facebook group?
This was it. We don't have a Facebook group anymore. We have our own private
Chat.
community. Yeah,
Okay,
in
now you do.
our app. It was partially that I
So
actually
it's an in-app.
in-app community.
It's an in-app community.
Yeah, yeah,
That is
yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was not aware
Yeah,
of
and
that. I
then
thought
we
you were
also
still going
have-
through the Facebook group.
No, that was my
Conversation. Okay.
MVP. That
Oh,
was the
wow.
MVP.
That's
That's what I
amazing.
raised money on as a
Amazing.
concept, proof of concept. Then I built the app. But even our community events and things like that, I led sessions while being pregnant. And so there was always like joy and excitement for what's to come.
So you got help and support?
I got help and support. And so kind of one thing that's always been on the docket for Silk and Sonder is this concept around micro communities and members being of service to each other. So when I think about what true community is about, it's not just about, you know, celebrating our wins and things like that. Everyone's been through something. Some of our customers have been through cancer. Some of them are fighting depression, anxiety, PTSD. Some of them have had miscarriages, like everything under the sun. And whether it's something you've dealt with professionally or personally, like why can't we be the bridges for each other? And so for me, I was nervous about postpartum. I thought it would be harder. For me, luckily, knock on wood, it was easier than pregnancy. Pregnancy, I truly felt like I wasn't myself. Postpartum, the part that was difficult was I had an emergency C-section. My daughter and I came 10 days early. It happened to be, I just had an instinct that I should go to the hospital. And thinking nothing of it, I was like, oh, I'm being paranoid. But I go and they said, had you waited a minute later, she may not have made it. And I had no idea that I was having these mild contractions and her oxygen levels were dipping. And they always tell you, this is for every woman listening, they tell you to wait until your contractions get very, very big to then go to the hospital. Thank God I didn't wait for that. Thank God I went before, because had I waited, it would have been too much for her.
Wow.
And so knowing that, it's like suddenly something switched with how I run the business. It's like the moment I have an intuition around something to create, something to change, I start to listen to it, because that's what's going to get us further than doubting myself or second guessing. But I think that part of the postpartum was tough, right? Because I went through something unexpected, but thank God for Silk and Sonder, going back to it being a vitamin and a proactive tool. When the doctor came in and said, we don't have time, we need to rush you for an emergency C-section, I kind of was like, that's the universe telling me what to do. I'm going to go for it. And, you know, everything worked out from there. But it is so different than running a company where you think you can control the inputs. And how do you bring that feeling of trusting the universe into it when there's tactical things that you can decide? But I've learned to kind of embrace trusting, surrendering, like allowing the timeline to unfold as it must. and go from there.
It's been quite manageable for you with the
Well,
baby and all that.
It's been hard. I think identity, like my roles have shifted. I think even the types of things I was able to do when I didn't have a daughter, like going into the city for meetings frequently or going to New York, once every 2 months, those types of things have had to kind of be reduced. But so much, like I can relate to my customers a lot more. When they told me, Meha, I don't have 5 minutes to myself. How am I going to do this journal?
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's why, like, when my wife told me about this, I was like, this looks like quite a bit of a commitment to give me a stress. Like, it depends on the person.
Yeah.
So we'll get into that. But yeah, please tell me.
Yeah, so I think one thing I realized after having my daughter is that I suddenly now can relate to a new cohort of customers, right? And there's a community of us who are now moms. And then I'm also a mompreneur. So who are the moms that have their own businesses? And, I think it's hard in a lot of ways, but it's also there's freedom and flexibility in being an entrepreneur if you set yourself up that way. That, like people always ask me, oh, how long is your maternity leave? And I'm like, I'm working all the time. I'm thinking about ideas as I'm in the operating room. Like it's when you pick a path that gives you joy and purpose, going back to work is not as awful as people make it seem. And thank God I work from home because I can see my daughter, in between meetings and things like that. That said, it's always hard. I think for me, I'm not used to feeling such big emotions, which are as part of postpartum. But I've learned that if you're working on things that give you joy, you just have to learn to be present in every moment.
I see.
And I think going back to a 9-to-5 job after 6 months of maternity, for me, that's not my purpose, right? I went back to work after 2 months, and I feel like some of our greatest ideas and products that we have coming up
Are due to that.
are due to that. Yeah.
To be able to be your customer or a user, you need a particular personality type who's like, someone who's okay to jot their feelings down, someone who's comfortable to write it down. For me personally, as an individual, I don't write my intimate thoughts down on paper. I cannot do that. I can speak at length about it for 3 hours on stage. On stage, like with 500 people in the room with stand-up comedy.
Yeah.
But I just cannot write it down. I can write it down when I'm writing it as a fiction, if someone else is experiencing that.
Interesting.
And it doesn't have to be a guy. It can be a girl, it can be a boy, baby, old guy, dog, whoever. And that's okay. And I'm not at all emotional.
Right.
I'm just like, I'm in a rush, I'm like getting some rush out of it. Like, this bad thing is happening. And that's happening. But then when it comes for me to write, especially something that is guided, I hate it.
Interesting.
I absolutely hate it because I physically cannot bring myself. And I don't hate the fact that someone is making me do things. I hate the fact that someone is making me do good things and I am not able to cross that barrier to put it down into physical space. So I'm pretty sure there's a niche or a larger user group of people that you are not able to access because of this.
Yeah, well, tell me, when was the last time you tried to bring pen to paper to journal?
So that's an interesting question. I think it would have been fair if I had not decided that writing fiction is my dedicated way of managing my mental health. But I would say maybe 3 years earlier was the one time when I just started writing.
Yeah.
I couldn't control it on a notebook. It was my joke. It was stand-up notebook. I just opened it. No structure. Just started writing stuff. And I was writing about my handwriting.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, you have a very confusing handwriting. Sometimes it slides right, sometimes it slides right. So it was a stream of consciousness just in the moment conversation with myself. And by the end of this page, I had stopped talking about handwriting. My handwriting was all over the place because it was reacting to the way I was reacting to my thoughts. And at the end, I was just like, maybe you should write more. This was super fun.
Oh, interesting.
And I didn't do that ever again after that.
And
it was good enough for 3 years.
Was it an emotional experience when you were writing that, or you were totally?
I think underlying it was continuously an emotional experience going throughout, because what I did next day is I opened the book and I analyzed things as well. So I was in a different mode, in a different zone, in a different mood. So I analyzed my handwriting at that point.
Totally.
I was like, oh my God, I'm writing this. Look at it's shaking. I'm emotional here. I'm confident here and things. I was just doing the
Yeah.
random
Yeah.
armchair
Yeah.
analysis.
Yeah.
But it was a momentary thing. It
Yeah.
helped though.
So I think to answer your question, of course, we can't be everything to all people from day one, right? But if there's one thing I want people to know, it's that journaling or bringing pen to paper is not just about writing about your emotions or writing about your handwriting. It is the mere act of slowing down and letting your brain process whatever is going on in its head, and that's how you go from chaos to clarity. So the types of people that really benefit from Silk and Sonder are often those that maybe were good students in school or need a creative outlet but don't know where to get started. Because when you look at a blank page, and you're a creative type, right? So for you to write down your comedy skits or your ideas for this podcast, whatever it might be, it might come naturally. But for the vast majority of people, especially women who struggle with perfectionism to the nth degree, they don't know what to write about. And
Okay,
so,
this is a revelation to me.
yeah,
I had no idea.
yeah.
So, okay, so
Which
what you're
part?
saying is
Yeah.
that some people are actually blocked on thought.
Of course, that's where I was when I can't tell you how many beautiful journals rot on, they were on my shelf for years.
So it was not
untouched.
like just you feel lazy or writing
No, it was
It's
it
just
was
that
this
you just
pure
don't know.
intimidation of what do I write about, and am I doing this right, and am I actually going to feel better writing? This is boring. I don't know what I just didn't know, and so that's what Silk and Sonder is about. It's this guided framework to help you get started, and my hope is that your words extend far beyond the papers, right? And that's why we have things like daily rituals. That's why we have our community events that help you go deeper. That's why we have our AI product, because it's more than just what's packaged in this booklet. And the beauty of personal growth, or the sad reality, is that it never stops. Because unfortunately, you are going to go through grief. Unfortunately, you are going to go through hardships. But Silk and Sonder is this tool. It's like a muscle. It's like once you're using Silk and Sonder, then you're able to react to moments in a way with clarity, because you know who you are. And by the way, authenticity. So when you think about joy, love, and authenticity, if you are your real self, you actually vibrate, like authenticity as an emotion, you vibrate higher than when you feel joy or love. And so the whole premise of Silk and Sonder is giving you the tools to find yourself again and be your real self, because we almost live with this fake exterior of who we actually are. So whether you're, achieving that through the community or through pen to paper or through audio, that is the intention. And so, for some people, it might be too overly structured or overly frameworked. Well, then that's where you use our AI product, because that maybe in your self-care prescription will never give you something too structured, because you don't work well with that. And instead of writing, maybe you're just reflecting or talking. So I think that's the goal, to meet you where you're at.
This is fantastic. Thank
Yeah.
you so much for sharing.
Of course.
And this is a very different episode, even by our standards,
Yeah.
of inviting people who are all over the place.
Yeah.
This is, I know we spoke at length about Silk and Sonder alone, because that's the primary part of your jack of all identity. But such a pleasure to have interviewed you, learn a little bit more about your amazing journey throughout, and then also have the opportunity to know an individual who has clarity of thought coming out of no clarity of thought and then working really hard to put something together that is then has the ability to be commercially a product.
Yeah.
Meha, thank you so much for being an individual who's truly making an impact. This is tangible.
Thank you.
If you are not here tomorrow, people will remember you. And I with a quick anecdote, I remember when you were during your pregnancy, you had to take a break of couple of months for to use your own voice for the guided audios.
Oh, yes.
And a lot of your customers noticed that.
Yeah.
That's a testament to the fact that you are deeply ingrained into your product and your users' lives.
Yeah.
With that, would you want to share any amazing testimonials or anecdotes or a message to your community
Yeah.
to end our conversation?
I think, when I really think about what drove me to start Silk and Sonder, I think growing up being Indian American, I didn't quite fit in with all the blonde hair, blue-eyed girls, right? And then as I became a software engineer, I was the only girl, one of the few girls in the room. And then even a computer science major, one of the few girls in the room. As a founder and CEO, I'm still one of the few women, but even more so one of the few Indian women. And so when I think about what is the Silk and Sonder brand all about, it is truly this community where we support one another despite or in spite of our differences. And I don't think Silk and Sonder would be here today if it wasn't for the fact that I created this new community where I feel like I belong. And I was able to take 3 months off from daily rituals because the community trusted that I would be back. The community trusted that I was making the right decision for me. I've been able to create tertiary products of Silk and Sonder because I ask customers for feedback and they are shouting from the roof on what they like and what they don't like. And it is such a privilege to have built one of the best, I think, the best communities that allows me to be authentic and vulnerable. I wouldn't have been able to raise funding if it wasn't for the support of my customers cheering me on. And I hope one day, if not ringing the bell, I do hope that one day customers can have a financial stake in the company because this brand wouldn't be possible if it wasn't for members like your wife.
Thank you so much for being an amazing individual and making a deep impact in a critical area from my community of Jack of Alls, and I'm pretty sure from your community of Silk and Sonder. We wish you all the very best.
Thank you.
And your husband, who I know is also a Jack of all, your little girl, and your rest of the family, best of luck.
Thank you.
And we wish you all the success so that you can be one of those people we are proud of our community for the years to come.
I hope so.
For building a lasting and impacting product in the mental health space. Thank you so much, Meha Agarwal.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely.
What a pleasure.
It was a pleasure. This is Meha Agarwal and Adi Naidu, and we have been Jack of Alls. See you next week. Thank you.